Dispatch number 14, the lava tides of war. Mission Specialist JB maneuvered through fallen sections of the damaged Simeon defense tower, casting long shadows over the rocky landing strip as the day turned quickly to night. The routine check to make sure that all accessories of Destiny's fortune were accounted for brought him back to his days on Earth, where he'd consistently been in charge of recovering lost or stolen artifacts on various missions. Before he could finish ducking under a piece of scaffolding, something went wrong and quickly emerged through the night. It caught his eye. Even with the sun setting below the moon's horizon, a noticeably darker entity had been making its presence known amongst some of the recruits as they landed on Simia. JB had noticed that it was the first hour of Commander Vaughn crashing the ship, but it had seemed to have grown 5 times over since. What was this toxic presence doing in what seemed to be a very peaceful sector of the galaxy? Hot, tired, and ready to vent his frustrations, the mission specialist pulled out his ship log recorder and held down the button to begin his latest entry. Why is it that when anything happens to any ship this crew touches, both commanders leave immediately after, and I'm the only one that's responsible for cleaning it all up? I guess that's what happens with being the only mission specialist left. After Commander Vaughn took out the Simeon defense tower, our science officers and engineers have been working their absolute tails off trying to repair Destiny's fortune as well as offering to help any of the other Simians in any way that they can. The problem is, this technology is unlike anything that we've seen before. The simian scientists have been very welcoming and respectful of us being naive. Something that I didn't expect after we basically blew a hole open in their atmosphere and left them susceptible for a foreign attack. With Flight Engineer Reimer attending to the internal wiring within the flight deck and Payload Specialist Risk making his rounds on all the recruits, I am tasked with trying to make sure that we don't piss off the new civilization that we so rudely introduced ourselves to any more than we have. JB took a brief pause from the recording and grabbed a handkerchief from his pocket to wipe his beaded forehead with. Along with the bandana came a fistful of sand that traveled with him from the dunes of Mackinac. Thoughts of his fallen partner in crime started to resurface, but he quickly shook his head and forced it all back down. JB pressed the recorder again. I've been noticing a glowing black blob that seems to be growing closer to the moon's atmosphere. Very slow, subtle changes. I may, in fact, be getting crazier by the second. But I swear, over the last few hours that we've been here, this black entity has at least tripled in size. When I asked a few of the scientists in charge of repairing the tower what they thought that it was, they were quick to dismiss my wild theory and told me that it was nothing to worry about. I now find myself looking up at the sky for what seems like every minute, the darkness setting off all sorts of red flags in my head. I don't know what normal is like on Simia, but I know that this certainly isn't it. The mission specialist released his thumb from the button, ending the log as his mind continued to fill with unanswered questions. Steady. Steady. Nice and easy now. Got it, said Flight Engineer Reimer as he finished repairing the main Magnaflex coil that was damaged during the crash landing. He had learned so much about this new technology since the days of tinkering under cars, the sandy beaches of the mid-Atlantic, just to have to pay rent. Well done. The main Magnaflux is never an easy repair, said Wisco Doug, as he and Ray W. made their presence felt inside the flight deck after watching the flight engineer work from afar. Yeesh, shouted Reimer as he subsequently lifted his head in shock, smacking it on the coil as he had just put back into place. Don't scare me like that. What are you trying to do? Give me a heart attack? Our apologies, sir. We were sent by Mission Specialist JB to check in on you and see how the repairs were going, said Ray W. I was almost done until my forehead moved the main coil out of place. We'll be good to go inside the ship momentarily. Go see if Payload Specialist Risk needs any help, said Reimer. inaudibly swearing under his breath so that the recruits couldn't hear a word. Aye, aye, sir. We'll relay the message, said Wisco Doug. Oh, and one more thing, said Reimer. Bring me something for the eventual headache that I'm about to get from the pantry, will you? Payload Specialist Risk cluttered the seal of Ilsindor tightly to his chest. Since landing on Simia, he had been experiencing splitting headaches, each one consecutively worse than the last. The pain, albeit crazy, seemed to be coming from the seal, a warning sign of sorts. A tap at his door abruptly took his mind off the seal momentarily. Risk! Reimer just wanted us to check in on you to see how you were doing, said Ray W. outside the payload specialist closed door. No, everything's fine here, said Risk, shoveling the seal under his pillow in a frenzy. Continue on with your scheduled duties. We're all done with assignments at this time. Is there anything else that we can do to help while we wait for the commanders to return? Said Wisco Doug. Risk put his fingers up to the temple as the searing pain started to come back behind his eyeballs. How much worse could these headaches possibly get? Feel free to pick whatever. I have Edgar and Buffalo 70 helping out janitor Eric in tidying up the gallery. Jamie and Arkar are resealing and escaping the pod hangar, and Molten Lava, Yogi 93, Mr. Crispy, Seal Burr, Infamous D, and Jake the Freak are helping the captains clean and reload the weaponry, said Risk, still behind his closed door. Will do, sir, relayed Ray W. and Wisco Doug in unison. One more thing, said Risk, clearly in agonizing pain now. Could one of you fetch something for my headache from the pantry? Absolutely. Right away, sir, said Ray as the two recruits looked at each other in confusion. That's not a normal, right, gentlemen? Said Commander Vaughn to the guards. The group all tilted their heads towards the conveniently large hole in the simian atmosphere right underneath the crash site of Destiny's Fortune. Man, everyone's gonna kill me, said Commander Vaughn, shaking his head as he started to sober up outside the marketplace. Yep, probably, said Commander Sean. Come on, we've got to make contact with Ringbolt and meet up with them stat. I have a bad feeling about this. We'll take you both to the Royal Temple, said one of the guards. The easiest way to get there is by that hovercraft through the market and up into the ridges of Mount Aluda. We must go at once. Sean and Vaughn followed the guards through the entrance of the Plume Marketplace, all frantically boarding the hovercraft to start the sprint to the Royal Temple, trying not to cause any sense of urgency and panic amongst the townsfolk. The hover cart could only weave in and out of the foot traffic so fast. What is life normally like around here whenever there isn't an evil army trying to invade the moon? Said Commander Sean, as an attempt to break the silent tension. He received a stern look from many of the guards, but the one that had been the most helpful to the commanders so far slightly grinned and answered politely. Plume Marketplace is where Simia lives and prospers. Professions and techniques passed down from generation to generation keep trade fair and flourishing. While there are tiers within the Simian society, the marketplace reminds us on why we're here and how grateful we are to have life at the base of Mount Aluda. Life has been very simple, the way that we have lived the past few centuries. Before the commanders could react and address the fact that a small number of these simians were several hundred years old, they had arrived to the Royal Temple. Zondar discreetly closed the set of doors behind him, joining Ringbolt, Vera, Aras inside the king's chambers. Panic had yet to set in from both Plume Marketplace and the Royal Temple, a blessing in disguise for at least the next few minutes. We need to get ahead of this, Your Majesty, said Zondar with a hint of worry in his voice. The people of Simia need to know that their king is ready to defend our beloved moon. Aras faced the mountain, his back to his very unorthodox family. The sky above Mount Aluda was almost completely pitch black from the threat of the Legion of Wen, growing darker by the second. Vera, tell the perimeter guards to lock down the temple. Ringbolt, track the 6 aircraft carriers that broke through our atmosphere and two-way Zondar and your team once you have a location. Zondar, gather the troops and sound the moon defense alarms. The High Protectors are calling me. I must listen to what they say, as I have a feeling that it may have everything to do with this battle for this moon. Aras took a quick look around the room and surveyed the looks of the faces from the three people that he trusted the most in this world. Go, may the High Protectors watch over all of us, said King Aras. As the group dispersed to handle their respective tasks, Commander Vaughn and Sean made their way up in their final set of stairs and entered the Simeon Royal Temple. They met Zandar and Ringbolt in the middle of the temple hall, out of breath from the lack of cardio that they've done in the past month. Commanders, it's so good to see you, said Ringbolt with a twinkle in his aged eye. By order of King Aras, we must prepare the recruits of Destiny's Fortune for battle. The commanders looked at each other with the initial glance of terror, nodded, and confidently looked back at the Theoluvian guide to accept the next challenge. Sprinting through the temple hall, Zandar gave the order to all guards and warriors alike to prepare for battle. After finishing his list of orders, on his two-way communicator, he raised his hand and grasped the top level of the Great Horn, a warning system only used in the most dire of emergencies. Zandar was afraid that the horn had been stagnant for so long that it would no longer work the same effect. He used all of his body weight and with all of his might pushed the lever from the great horn down to set off the sequence of alarms routed throughout the moon. The commanders and Ringbolt caught up with Zandar and joined him on the ledge overlooking the rest of the colony of Simia. As the horns sounded off throughout the city, water pots and food barrels were quickly replaced by flame spears and armor suits in the marketplace below. Zandar handed Ringbolt a pair of binoculars, and the Theoluvian scanned the confines of the vast lava pools spread out on the dim horizon. There! Ringbolt pointed. All the ships are headed towards that damaged defense tower. The commanders looked at each other and both thought the exact same thing. They had to contact J.B. Reimer Risk and the rest of Destiny's Fortune. Aras sprinted up the first and second ridge on his way to talk to the High Protectors of Mount Aluda, every now and then glancing back in to check on the colony of Simia below. Plume Marketplace was gathering by soldiers by the second, the tips of their flame spears barely visible from this vantage point. The valley below. Aras sprinted up the first and second ridge on his way back to talk to the High Protectors of Mount Aluda, every now and then glancing back in over his head to check on the Simia colony below. Plume Marketplace was gathering soldiers by the second, the tips of their flame spears barely visible from his vantage point. The valley below had been built upon generations of solidarity and respect to the elders before him. And by the gods above would he let any sort of evil take over the place that all Simians call home. His feet continue to grow warmer due to the energy given off by the lava rocks beneath. Almost there, the sky was completely pitch black now. Aras looked out over towards Destiny Fortune in terror, continuing to race up the mountainside. He must hurry if there was any chance of saving both his race and the humans that landed there. Once Aras reached the shrine of High Protectors, he immediately fell to his knees, gasping for air. After a few seconds, he caught his breath and closed his eyes to await the next set of instructions. JB, Risk, Reimer, can any of you hear me? Yelled Vaughn over the two-way communicator that every ranking officer wore on Destiny's Fortune. Loud and clear, Commander. It's good to hear your voice. What's with all the horns sounding off around the city? Said Reimer. He and Risk both stared out the windows of the flight deck into the black abyss above, terrified with what the commander's response would be. Simia is under attack by the Legion of Wen and their army of Reklikon. Prepare the recruits in Destiny's Fortune for battle, said Commander Sean. Hold on, guys. We're on our way. When does King Aras want to engage? Said Reimer. How will we know when they're here? Interrupted JB, face to face with Violico, a member of the Legion of Wen. The mission specialist pulled down his armored helmet over his face and activated his fire spear one of the Simian warriors had given him. Unfortunately, they're already here. Doesn't look like they're going to go away anytime soon. See you guys on the other side. Vioko reached back behind his head and revealed a hammerhead-shaped weapon. The Wen members snickered as he activated a secondary handle featuring a spear, clearly expressing the dominant weapon amongst the two. JB looked back at his recruits fighting the Reliclon. Then he locked eyes with Violico. The Battle of Simia had begun. The mission specialists and Wind members sprinted towards each other and lunged, their fire spears connecting in such a loud clash that it reverberated off the great horn several miles away. JB weaved and dodged the Wind's attack, getting in jabs to the chest and the jaw just when he could. Violaclo paused, reset his feet, and ravaged JB with a consecutive blow to the side of the head with the spear. JB looked up after seeing stars for a few seconds, noticing that the lava pools surrounding the battlefield were starting to agitate, causing the nearest rock to start to turn into molten lava. Destiny's fortune was just starting to power up, but it wouldn't be ready in time to save the battle. He had to move now. JB moved to the right just to avoid another seismic blow to the face, this time able to catch Violaclo by surprise for a brief moment. The mission specialist caught the Wind with a crushing blow to the cheekbone. Black blood starting to leak now from the enemy. JB lunged one more to the Wind's left side, this time swinging through midair. The Wind countered, throwing his right arm around JB's throat and immediately started constricting, life being sucked out of him with every gasping breath. JB reached back irrationally, not able to connect with the Wind on any attempts. The Wind brought his arm over the other and wrapped it around JB's neck tight. As the mission specialist struggled for air, the Wind let go of his chokehold and raised his hand up to JB's left eye. Violco then reared his hand back and slung it forward, connecting with JB's eye, disarticulating the veins from the mission specialist's body. Writhing in splitting pain, JB's instinct-led adrenaline kicked in, elbowing the Wind just enough to waver the enemy for a brief second. Still facing backwards from the enemy, JB threw his fire spear over his shoulder, connecting and impaling the Wind warrior. The fire weapon passed through his skull and exited into the lava pool behind him.
Recruits, it's time for you to choose what you think happens next. Select 1 if you think a new series is introduced in the next dispatch. Select 2 if you think Aras imposes his will on the Replicon. Select 3 if you think Risk's headaches cause another medical problem. Head to the Choose Your Own Adventure channel in the Shot to the Moon Discord and discuss your choices with fellow Space Pass holders. Listen to next week's podcast to hear what happens next.